If anyone knows about ethics, it's Rick Pitino. Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rick, you really walked yourself into this one. Rick Pitino blasts the officiating after the game, and in a backwards way, Scott Drew as well, after the Bears shock St. John's 99-98 double overtime at the buzzer. Pitino is in there in the postgame calling out the refs and cheating his team out of a victory. This is a bonus Locked On Baylor. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. A thrilling win for the Bears last night, and it's not often you see a team come back from down 5 with 8 seconds left. But VJ Edgecombe hits that kind of wild 3. They get the foul right away, and Zuby Ejiofor misses 2 free throws. And here come the Bears. Norchad Omier to Jeremy Roach, 3-pointer, bang, game over. Just like that. Rick Pitino's team blew a 14-point halftime lead, an 18-point lead at one point, and missed crucial free throws down the stretch, as did Baylor, but missed 2 free throws that would have iced the game with 7 seconds left. And Rick Pitino, of course, has a problem with the officials. And specifically what led to those 2 free throws, or what happened right before those 2 free throws by Zuby Ejiofor. This is what the great Rick Pitino had to say about ethics after the game.
Well, that was about as difficult a loss as you can have. I felt at the end of the game that was highly unethical to go to the camera on a BS makeup and icing my free throw shooter. Highly unethical. And the referee should never let it happen. But give them credit. They made 15 threes.
Highly unethical. Rick Pitino calling somebody highly unethical. How unethical do you have to be for Rick Pitino to call you highly unethical? And what has to happen for a battle of ethics, even all these years later, for Baylor to be in the right? I mean, it's funny. I'm sorry. It's just funny that if anyone is going to call anyone unethical, it's going to be Rick Pitino. Great choice of words. I mean, he's in his 70s now. He doesn't need a PR guy. He's the king of the castle up there at St. John's. He paid his dues in Greece and then Iona. And now he should go to St. John's and just call the referees unethical. So what leads to this play is Ejiofor gets fouled by Jaden Nunn as soon as they inbound the ball after the Edgecombe 3. And Zuby does throw a bit of an elbow out there. And so the officials go to the monitor. Now, it looks like from the TV broadcast, we've not received any confirmation about this, that Scott Drew asked them to go to the monitor. What we don't know is if Scott Drew asked them to go to the monitor to inquire about the elbow or about the clock and how much time should have been on the clock, because Baylor was always going to foul right away, and it took about a second or so. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes it just takes a minute for the refs to call it or for the foul to actually be committed. So we don't actually know what Scott Drew went to the monitor for. It's just a bunch of presumptions on Twitter that he went for the elbow, which it could have been. And seeing the replay, I didn't think there was anything there. I think that was a basketball play from what I remember. Can't get a replay of that elbow, but it looked to be fine. And the officials also deemed it to be fine. And what Rick had a problem with was that it iced Zuby Ejiofor. Like, am I this new to college basketball? Like, how many times do we see the refs go to the monitor in the final minute of a game? Like, this is not the only time that this has happened before a guy shoots 2 big free throws. Like, the problem is you need to make the free throws. Am I missing something? This is like an epidemic in college basketball. The last minute of a game takes like 28 minutes. because this happens all the time. We're reviewing fouls all the time. So this part I don't understand. Like, Baylor missed a bunch of free throws down the stretch. They're not using that excuse. Like, you sack up and you hit your free throws. And I feel for the kid. I mean, that stinks. He was crying after the game, and it's obviously a really tough spot and a hard-fought game. But let's not act like there was like any kind of collusion here to ice the free throw shooter. That's ridiculous. Now, if Rick Pitino is going to have a problem with the officiating down the stretch, there is something else he can point to. This is what fascinates me. He goes to this icing the free throw shooter thing, which is just a dumb argument to me. But if you watch after the free throw was missed, it looks a lot like the clock started pretty late, like maybe half a second to a second late. This video is going all over Twitter. I can't put it on here because it's on the game broadcast. I'd be demonetized. But the ball gets tipped around a few times. And once that ball is touched, if I'm not mistaken, once that ball is touched, the clock should be running. And instead, it looks like they wait until someone gets possession of it. Almost like an end of a shot clock deal. And it looks like it gives another second there. Does it really give Baylor another second? Well, they didn't have possession of it. But yeah, I mean, it does. It does. So I think if we're going to point to anything, Rick, let's look at that. But instead, you went for a dumber argument, which I'm like, brother, how many college basketball games have you coached? You're a Hall of Famer. You've been doing this for like 40 years. This is not the first time that has happened to you. Completely unethical. Like, what does that mean? As if like the refs are like, oof. Boy, I don't like Rick. I'd really like St. John's to miss these 2 free throws. How about we go to the monitor? Like, that's what you're saying when you say it's unethical. Oh, man. There are plenty of other issues, and Pitino is pointing to this unethical, like as if the refs colluded with Scott Drew, maybe even, to ice the free throw shooter. Yeah, that's just not doing it for me. How about this, Rick? In 2 games against Scott Drew, you've had at least an 18-point lead in both. A 22-point lead 8 years ago with Louisville, and an 18-point lead last night for St. John's. And you blew them both. Something about facing Scott Drew in the Bahamas. I probably wouldn't do it anymore if I were you. But maybe that's just me being unethical. Anyway, this is your number 1 spot for Baylor exclusive content that's not coming straight from the university. So be sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton. We're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers. Leave a comment underneath. What do you think about this call? Was it unethical? Should Rick Pitino be calling people unethical? And did the clock start on time? Because honestly, I think St. John's could have a beef there. And I didn't see it until this morning, but they could have a beef there. Drop that down in the comment section below, and we will see you probably tomorrow night after the Baylor-Houston game on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.